the purpose of a project charter is really, I think charter is a sort of quality improvement term, really it's your project document. So it's getting you to try and think about your project around the aim of it, what is the problem you're trying to solve, and also the scope of it. So that's really the purpose of this project charter document. It also includes, will include your driver diagram, which is part of the session a bit later on today. So basically we have our improvement journey, which I think has already been talked about today in terms of what we're trying to do today and through all these sessions is understand our problem. So a lot of the work that's been going around on co-design, that's helping to understand the problem, not just from a staff or a unit perspective, but also from our consumer perspective as well. And then we're also looking at what systems. So we've talked a little bit about in the previous sessions about trying to understand your system. So where does your unit or fit or your project fit within the system? Because there's no point in doing a project in isolation, because we know that what we will do as a team will have effects on other teams or other units, etc. So trying to understand our system. We're also looking at setting an aim, so that's what this session is about today in terms of just I'm not expecting that you'll walk out the door having set your aim, because it's a bit of an iterative process that you had to re-look at it again and think about many times. And then you develop your theory. So again, as we heard from Ros, it's not meant to be to put you off in terms of your theory, it's just about what are you wanting to do? And then you're looking at your measures. How might you then measure this? Because without data, then we're not going to know if we've made a difference or not. And then we're going to test those changes. And then the great bit that we have in terms of this, that can often be the tricky bit at the end, is how do we spread this? And then how do we sustain it? Because again, there's no point in doing a project if we come back 6 months and it's all, there's no sign of it. So it's really important to, even at this very beginning point, to be thinking, how are we going to sustain this? Once we've tested our changes, to see what works or not, because not every change that you test will be something that you'll keep, but the ones that we do keep, how are we going to spread and sustain it? So like discharge planning, you're thinking about right at the very beginning, how are we going to spread this? So the project charter, I think Dr. Joseph Duran was an engineer and management consultant, and he was apparently an evangelist for quality and quality management, and has written many books on this subject, including the quality improvement process, quality in healthcare services. And so he said, all improvement happens project by project. There is no other way. So actually the work that we're doing is the way to improve. So sometimes people think, oh, not another project, or we've had enough of these projects, but actually this is the way we work through improvement. So the project charter is just the initial way in terms of the model for improvement. So who amongst you is familiar with the model for improvement, these 3 key steps? So these are like the building blocks of your improvement. Always to keep at the top of your mind anything you're doing. What are we trying to accomplish? And that's the point of working through your project charter. How are we going to know that a change is an improvement? So that's how important data is, looking at your improvement. And what change can we make that will result in improvement? And then at the bottom, you have your plan, do, study, act cycles, which you'll hear more about today if you're not already familiar with those. So your charter is basically a basic description of your project. What is your aim? Actually, I could be looking here. What are you trying to accomplish? And do you need to narrow your scope? So I think scope's really important to consider when you're trying to consider your project aim, because I'm sure many of you have heard the term scope creep, and it's real, because unless you try to define your aim of your project, which sometimes can be quite tricky, the beginning and the end, because then it's like, oh, we could do this, and what about this, and what about that? But also we know that this is probably, for a lot of you, you have a job, and I mean, I think it's Bob Lloyd, who says all of us have 2 jobs. We have our job, and then our job is also to improve to improve it. But you also, this improvement work is often that you're doing as well as your other jobs, so it's also to make things manageable as well in terms of the scope of your project. And then who do you need on your project team? So that's in terms of, again, you're probably already, a lot of you I think have started to establish your teams in terms of your consumer engagement, your Maori health engagement, and Pacifica in terms of the demographics of your project or your unit or the DHB that you're in, your subject matter experts, multidisciplinary team. So who do you need on that team? And also having a data person involved is really great. If you've got that person within your DHB, having them involved right from the very beginning is really helpful. So what are the components of a project charter? So you'll see in your document here, I think you've all got a template. Has anybody not got one or need another one? I think we've got some spare at the back if you need one. So basically it's the background of your project, and we've put a little bit of prompts in this, and on your stick as well you'll have a template to use, so you can take out these on your template, you can take out the bullet points that are sitting in there. So it's basically the problem statement can go in your project background or your aim statement. It's looking at why are we doing this piece of work. And then your aim, use your aim statement. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And then again, we've talked about scope. So yes, you're not trying to solve world hunger. It's yes, what is realistic and doable within all of your time and resources. And what do we want to achieve? And who and what will be affected by this project? And measures, so probably early days now, but if you can start thinking about some of the measures that you might use to show that or demonstrate that you've made a difference or not. And ideas, so what changes will lead to improvement? And then again, we've talked about who do you need on your team. So the point of a problem statement is to define these are just some thoughts about trying to define your problem statement. So when are we seeing this problem? How big is it? What is the problem that we're trying to work on? And what was something, what led to us having the problem? And have we got some evidence to support where we're at the moment? And one of the easy things to do is to start already solutions. So we already think actually we know what's going to fix this. So actually your problem statement shouldn't include any solutions, because that's the point of you going on your journey of finding out, defining your problem, testing changes. So yes, or at these early stages you haven't got the solution or the answer, otherwise we wouldn't really need to be doing this if we all had the answer. So in terms of setting an aim, I think it was Clive who mentioned about SMART. In terms of your aim should be SMART aim. So it's being very specific about what exactly do you want to achieve, and that includes the scope, and it needs to be short and concise, because you don't want your aim statement to be a paragraph, otherwise you want it to be short and snappy. And it's in terms of measurable, so it's have you got measures to say, how much by when? And achievable or attainable, is this actually possible? So that's in terms of your scope as well. You need to be able to attain what your work needs to be attainable. And is it something that you have control over? So there's no point in a way writing an aim statement about something that you as a project team have no control over. And then in terms of I think I added is it relevant? I think I added to that, and realistic. So does this apply? Are you looking at applying to the right area? Are we focusing on the right population? And does the outcome actually matter? And then the T is time-based. So when would you like to accomplish this? And need to have clear timelines. So this is just a couple of examples of an aim statement. So we aim to reduce harm and improve patient safety for all of our internal and external customers. What do people think about that aim statement? So, yeah. Yes. So if you read this aim statement, do you think it fits within the SMART framework? It's got nothing about how, by when. This is another example. What do people think about that one? Yeah, so it's not you then. So the 20% is like from what? What is it at the moment? Is it is it already 60% at the moment, and you're 20? So yes, so putting it in a context as well. And yes, I think I heard somebody saying there's no by when either. So these are real examples that's been seen in documents. So what target? What population? They've got the by when, but not the how much. So this is an example that Karen proposes for zero seclusion. What do you think about this one? So it's quite specific. It's got the measurable, the how much by when. We're saying, yes, this is attainable, it's very relevant, and it's got a time. So actually that's a nice example of an aim statement there that's SMART, so it's got all the aspects of the aim statement. And then I think this was just another example as well. We didn't add the how much by when, but another example of a type of wording around an aim statement that you could use. So the point of this session was to give you some time to start thinking about your own aim statements on your charter, like your problem statements and your aim statements. So as I said, I think this is great these days to give you a chance to work together in your teams. So just for you to start thinking about it and making a start on trying to define your work. As part of the document that we've given you as a template, this is just really a bit of extra information for you at the back about a charter review checklist and roles and responsibilities, just some in terms of your project team. That's just a little bit more information for you. So the meat of the charter is this bit here, this couple of pages. So yes, take the opportunity to spend some time in your team and trying to define your aim statements, problem statements, and we'll walk around and help you with that.